Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. So, I have to apologize. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube and on Rumble, you just got through seeing my ugly mug with a couple of other people because we had to double up today and do Raising Values and Matter of Facts back to back. And for those of you who are listening to this in audio, you have no earthly idea what I'm talking about, which is probably for the better. But Andrew and I decided we were going to sneak in a quick one on a Sunday, not quite morning, it's lunchtime now. And we're going to try not to talk ourselves in circles on this. I'm hoping maybe Andrew can pull a good rant out of me. We'll see.
Try.
All right, so straight to it. For anybody that has not heard, I'm gonna roll in the I'm gonna roll in this right here and now. So this article popped up yesterday, and Andrew and I were trading it back and forth, and Andrew absolutely dropped a hand grenade into Instagram about it, which I thought was hilarious, by the way. And it kind of pulled out a bit of a topic that I've had rolling around for a while, something I've been thinking about, and now it's just kind of come back out to the forefront. But basically, this knucklehead Catholic cardinal from Newark, New Jersey, says that in the interest of saving the world and having a better community, we should all voluntarily give up our gun rights.
Yeah. I mean, basically, which I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. People who are openly, anybody who is, I don't even know. Like, I really don't even know what to say about this, because I really feel like anybody who asks you to give up your right for self-defense in any shape or form, they're very blind in some way. Like, they live in a utopia where crime doesn't happen, evil people don't exist. I don't know where they live. I know it's not a democratic city, because those are rampant with crime. But I mean, yeah, do I want to see an end of gun violence or violence in general? Well, yeah, we all do, I think. But me laying down my firearm is not going to help anything better in Chicago. Me laying down my firearm is not going to help protect me in any way, shape, or form. If somebody who has evil intent on their mind or their heart, that's not going to protect me from them. What's going to protect me from them is, well, myself and a form of self-defense, whether it be a firearm, a knife, a sword, a cannon. I don't care what it is, pick your poison, but humans are entitled to self-defense no matter what it is. And if it includes, nuking the dude up, like blowing the guy up to where he's no longer in existence, you know what? I walked away, and yeah, it's a little extreme that guy is now in pieces, but you know what? He came to me with evil intent, and I walked away. So hopefully he spends his days in eternity, like, in pain. But I'm walking away. And this kind of goes into what you were saying too, was, the whole Christianity, people saying, well, if you're Christian or any kind of religion, really, you need to lay down your arms, especially Christians, because just they're like, well, you don't want violence and all this other stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, before we go to that whole that incredible fallacy that like Christians can't own firearms or shouldn't own firearms, because that, like we were talking about right before the show, like that is something that I feel like I've had kind of low key pushed on me even when I was a member of the Catholic Church. It's something that was definitely out front in the short time that I was part of the Methodist Church. And I feel like I've gotten that pushback from lots of different places, both from Christians and from non-Christians, which I find hilarious that a person would try to use my own personal faith against me when they themselves don't believe it. But like to cap off this cardinal, and why this frustrates me so badly is because like I told you, Andrew, like I heard this exact same nonsense out of the Pope's mouth 2 popes ago. And it is one of, not the only by far, but one of the reasons I left the Catholic Church, a generation ago. Because I have a severe problem, the same problem I have with our politicians and our elite and the ultra wealthy complaining to the plebes about why we shouldn't own guns when they live behind tall walls guarded by men with guns. I have a problem with that. It seems a little bit elitist to me. It seems a little bit talking down their nose. And the Vatican's the Vatican has a private army that is one of the largest private armies in the freaking world. So for any member of the clergy, any high-ranking member of the clergy, to complain loudly in public about how Christians should lay down their arms for the betterment of society, to me feels at a minimum a little bit disingenuous. But then to soapbox for just the briefest of moments, I look in the Bible, and anytime I hear what I consider to be crap from clergymen that is not found in the Bible, I immediately call it out. I get very frustrated by it because I am a very devout Christian, despite not being a member of any established church, because I kind of have my issues with most of them. But I look at biblical stories like David and Goliath, like the plagues of Egypt to convince Pharaoh to release the Hebrews. I look in the oldest reaches of the Bible where Sodom and Gomorrah was torn to pieces by God himself, by the right hand of God, because they were disobedient and they were an affront to his will. I look at the story of Moses. I look at the story of, the story of the ark when God flooded the entire earth, committed genocide upon all of his people that he created, except for one family and one of each animal, or two of each animal to repopulate the earth. You read these stories, and then supposedly the clergy who read the same stories in the same Bible I did, they come out of this with the idea that, well, violence is never good. And I'm like, but your own God that you swear to me you believe in has committed acts of violence, and we are created in his image. And like, I'm not trying to make this a whole show about Christianity, but like, this is a show of that espouses that people should have the right and have the duty to protect themselves, and people should take steps to arm themselves and train themselves because you are your own first responder. And what I find frustrating is when people are told that because of a religious or faith-based reason, you should basically give up your ability and your right to protect yourself and become a soft target. I find that very distasteful. I find that a bit enraging. It's frustrating to me because, like, the entire reason I am such an advocate of self-defense is because I want to see people on this earth able to live their best life, to be with their families, to be with their community, to enrich each other. And I believe in the deepest part of my soul that is what our Creator would have wanted, is for us to be here and be with our families and to be able to take care of each other. And to attempt to short circuit that using the same faith that drives most of us to be our best person is just, it's awful to me. It's frustrating. Frustrating is probably the nicest word I can put on it. I honestly, like, the fact that this is coming from the Catholic Church doesn't surprise me that much. I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised though. I mean, and I don't want to turn this into a big religious episode, because whatever your religion is, whatever it is, honestly, like, as long as as long as you're a good person, I mean, I'm gonna talk to you, really. And I mean, I'm new to religion, but the fact that throughout the Bible, the false prophets, the warning about false prophets is, it's new. It's throughout the entire Bible. It's not just in one area. It's throughout the entire the book. And we and what's interesting is, I just pulled it up. Let me see. can't remember now. I can't find it now. But basically, they describe it, one explanation of a false prophet is somebody who, basically they're they're not saying the word of God. They're not explaining the word of God and what He actually said. What He wants. They're actually doing it for financial gain. They're doing it for either an evil purpose, stuff like that. And stuff like the church and stuff with the Pope and even with this cardinal and everything. I'm really curious on what gain, like who passed him some money. I'm kind of curious to see the background of this because some of this, like I don't believe that he just came out there and was like, yeah, you guys need to do this like on his own will. I believe like he was coerced in some way as far as maybe money, financial gains, a uh, donation to his church or to the church or whatever it is. I really feel like there's hidden money somewhere, and for a lot of these people, because that I've noticed a lot of these people that are coming out when they're talking heads for certain gun groups, they're lobbying for certain gun groups or anti-gun groups. I mean, gun groups too, but the pro gun side is they're fighting for your right. Yeah, that's a big lobbying for your right. Yeah, it makes a lot of people money, but they're fighting for your right for self defense in a way. And I mean, you look at FPC and GOA and all that stuff. These people are fighting for your right to go away. Like they don't want to see you have the right to self defense. If you talk to them and say, well, if I need to defend myself, they're going to try to talk you away from it, and I don't agree with that. You have the right to self defense no matter what the cause, what happens. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting, and this guy, I'm hoping he gets torn up online for it because it's terrible. And that's the thing is when you talk about the false prophets. I mean, in Matthew 7:15, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. I mean, Catholics, the cardinals and bishops, and I mean, pedophilia runs pretty deep within the church. And so again, why do they want their people? Why do they want people disarmed and helpless? That's so they can prey on them. Not saying that goes across the board to everyone, but it kind of you see certain people making claims of, hey, disarm, lay down your arms for an evil intent, and that's all that it is. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're religious or not, if you're a politician, if you're whatever it is, you want to disarm the people for an evil intent, and that goes back across history. You look at Hitler, you look at Mussolini and all that stuff. So,
Well, and let's broaden this out and draw some parallels. Like, if you look at like, I know that within the African American community, like Malcolm X is a very polarizing figure, but he was very, 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 very pro gun. And he was a huge believer in a lot of things we talk about, which is like armed minorities are hard to oppress. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really difficult for the KKK to operate if all the black folk have guns too, because they tend to shoot back when you try to put a rope around their neck. I mean, I hate to be that aggressive and forward about it, but like that's like the whole reason why I say everybody should have arms, because if you have arms, it's really hard to oppress you. It's really hard to bully you and take your rights and do bad things to you because you can respond to that immediately and aggressively. It's the reason why there's an Instagram account I follow called the Pew Pew Jew. Dude is hilarious, by the way. Great freaking memes. But like he calls out members of the Jewish community very, very regularly because there are so many voices within his community and his religious community who are calling for the same thing. They're calling for people to support gun control. They're calling for people to support certain politicians that are anti-gun. And his point of view is, he said, he's very quick to point out that the Holocaust would not have been possible if the Jews had not been disarmed. And again, not a nice subject, not a nice way to say it, but I don't care if it's nice or not, he's right. Like, if you look throughout history, every group that has been oppressed, every group that has faced a Holocaust, every group that has been eradicated, if you look in Cambodia, if you look at freaking Vietnam, if you look at North Korea, for God's sakes, if you look at China, if you look at Russia, what happened when the Bolsheviks took power, every time a government commits acts of atrocity or a group commits acts of atrocity, it is almost always against people that are disarmed. Why? Because disarmed people don't shoot back. Why do you think mass shootings happen in schools? Gun-free zones. You know how, and I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day. I didn't get a response back from, which I'm assuming means they pissed off to another part of the internet to avoid what I was trying to point out to them. But we were talking about mass shootings, and I said, I can only think of a single mass shooting that I can only think of a single spree shooting attempt that happened in a non-gun free zone within the last however many years. And they were like, which one? And I'm like, well, I remember that there was a police department in Houston where a person walked in the front door with an AK-47 determined to shoot up a bunch of cops. You know how long it lasted? Half a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
0 cop shot. Person stumbled out the front door with about 45 9mm slugs in his chest and didn't make it off the sidewalk. That's what happens when you try to do dumb stuff and hurt people in places where everybody has guns. I love how the favorite talking point of the anti-gunners is, well, if everybody had guns, they'd all shoot each other. It'd just be like the OK Corral, and there'd be bullets flying everywhere. And I'm like, have you ever looked and seen what a mass shooting looks like? There's bullets flying around everywhere anyway. The only problem is the person making all the bullets fly around is the person trying to kill people. I'd rather the victims have an opportunity to attempt to save their life by dealing with the problem. And if that means there's a couple extra bullets flying around, I mean, look at all of the mass shootings that have been stopped by concealed carriers. The myth that more guns means more collateral damage is bullcrap.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what was his name? The mall shooting, the Dickens drill, where all that comes from. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank.
40 yards.
Look at
40
that.
Yards, he's...
The dude zapped off a couple of shots with a pocket pistol from 40 yards away. Didn't miss one. It's a myth. It's bullcrap.
Yeah.
This idea that all these concealed carriers are just going to fire blindly into the air and there's going to be extra victims is nonsense. Every time that a mass shooter encounters a concealed carrier, the problem gets solved quickly, much more quickly than when you have to wait 40 minutes for the police to show up. Looking at y'all, Uvalde.
Yeah, or they just stand out in the hall and wait.
And handcuff parents who want to run in and save their kids.
Yeah. No, it's protecting yourself, having the means to protect yourself, and doing it are important. And that's where I guess that's where we disagree when it comes to, not we disagree, but that's where we disagree with other people when it comes to this topic as far as carrying, and then that's the thing is churches. I mean, you saw attack on churches when the gun-free zone, basically when things pass and they kind of ban, hey, you can't take into a place of worship, stuff like that. You saw a small uptick in shootings at churches, but then as soon as churches were like, hey, we're going to start forming, groups of people that are carrying without, and they started basically shooting back in certain areas, and now you don't really see that happen. It still happens, unfortunately, but to me, I feel like you don't see it as much because it's no longer if someone walks in and they want to do ill intent. They don't know if someone's carrying or not. They don't know if the church has a fire team or not. But schools, the politicians, and I've said it before, the politicians who passed the gun-free act or gun-free zone, all that crap, the blood is on their hands. The children that have died in these school shootings, it's not on gun owners. It's not on Smith & Wesson. It's not on anybody. It's not a law-abiding gun owner. It's not their fault. It's not one of their faults, except it's the politicians who pushed the gun-free zone, and they made our schools, our banks, if it's a gun-free zone and a shooting happens, if you support that, then you need to flick yourself in the eye if you try to tell me that it's my fault, because I know what would happen if, like, I don't know what would happen if I was there, whether, it all depends, but because I've never been in that situation. But I carry a firearm, I train with it, and just in case that situation happens. So I don't know. We can go round and round. I really feel like with this, it's at the end of the day, protect yourself, carry it, protect yourself, be proficient with it, get training. I don't care where you live. Try to find a training class, get training, do dry fire drills. If all you can carry is a knife, carry a knife, carry something to protect yourself. Don't be a victim. Like, that's my biggest thing is you see people getting attacked all the time. Don't be a victim. Carry medical on you. There's plenty of kits out there that are small that you can carry on your ankle. If you're wearing shorts, that they can fit in the pocket of a cargo shorts. Like, start thinking this crap through, because evil will never go away. They can legislate guns, they can legislate knives. Like, look at London. They, the anti-gunners love pointing at overseas, London, Australia, stuff like that, saying, "Well, look at this. We banned guns. We criminalized the ownership of firearms, basically, and shootings have went down." Well,
Uh-huh.
London, people are getting ran down with swords, and people are getting stabbed to death. Like, your stabbings are going through the roof. So you can't tell me that your legislation helped anything. It didn't. All it did was it just drove somebody to do something else. Because if somebody wants to do an act of harm, an act of violence, they're gonna do it. Look at Timothy McVeigh. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't use a firearm. He used explosives. And now we have 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate that just came up missing, and they still haven't found it.
I'm sure
So,
that's for a gardening project.
yeah, or a black swan event, if you
Could
want to get
be.
into that, one of these days. But yeah, so protect yourself. Carry something, protect yourself, and train with it. Like, I don't know how many times I can say it, but I don't know how
Well,
many times, like, ex-girlfriends and stuff like that, like, I've bought knives for, because, like, no, they're going to work, or they're leaving work and it's dark out. They're going to, back in college and stuff like that. It's like, hey, carry this with you. You can't carry a firearm because it's a gun-free zone, but you take this knife and you plunge it into somebody who's trying to do active harm you. It's gonna get their attention, and you don't
yeah.
stop until they either run away, you get away, or they're dead.
The other thing there's a saying down here in the South, and I'm sure it's probably saying in other places. There's some other version of it, but you never ask for recipes from a skinny cook. In other words, like, you don't put a lot of weight in somebody's opinion if very obviously they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The old joke is like skinny chefs must not like their cooking, because if they did, they'd be tasting it throughout the day and they'd be putting on weight. It's a saying. Well, I refuse to take advice on whether or not I should be armed from people with armed security. As a general rule, apply that wherever you see fit. But members of the clergy, politicians, oligarchs, dictators, I don't care. If you are surrounded by people with guns, your opinion on whether or not I should have guns doesn't matter the tiniest little bit to me, and it never will. Please have a nice day. Go to hell. So, 24 minutes in, we're going to probably wrap this one up fairly quickly, I imagine. But I had a thought about staging your preps for emergencies, and I'm going to out myself right now and say that I am in a really bad place right now, because for the weekend, I have extra people in my house, very small children. So literally every gun in the entire house is secured, as it should be. I'm a responsible gun owner. But normally I would have a firearm on my hip so that there's at least one gun within quick access. Unfortunately, this morning, that would have involved waking up my wife before she was ready to be woken up, getting that gun out of the safe, which I would have died. So, as a result, I had to. I don't have the best I can tell y'all is I have a knife, and normally there's a rifle on that wall behind me with a magazine, and I usually keep the bolt separate just in the name of safety in case somebody would grab it off the wall and be like, oh, free AR. only to realize it won't actually work without all the parts. But even that is locked up. So I thought
Yeah,
staging your
well,
preps for
I mean,
emergencies would be an interesting conversation because, like, we talk a lot about being armed. We talk a lot about having medical. We talk a lot about having stuff and even training to use the stuff. But if all the stuff is, like, put up on a shelf where you can't get to it when you really, really need it right now, it's not helping much.
well, but that's where, uh, I mean, that's where having smaller safes and stuff around the house will help. You have, oh shoot, the gun safe company that we used to partner with,
Secure it.
Secure. Yeah, the one thing I did like about their whole idea was having smaller safes tucked around, put in, not a centralized safe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, having a bigger safe and having multiple guns in there, okay, whatever. But having like self defense tools, pistols, and having certain ones where, okay, I have this, there's this cabinet over here. Well, okay, do I really need 17 different colors of plates where they can fit all down in one shelf? Well, now if I put if I put a lockbox up there where I just have to pop up, do a code, and I can grab something out, and bolt it down to the shelf. I mean, that right there is a firearm in another location. All these companies are constantly, like, you're seeing the big popular. They're becoming popular with making like uh, just the flags on the walls, or the picture frames on the walls, the mirrors on the walls that you can cut into, you can remove, stuff like that. Like, just get creative on how to hide firearms around your home. Even if you have kids, just get creative on how to do it. Make sure they're locked up, and make sure that if they do lock, if it does lock, or magnetic lock or whatever, make sure that those, like, nobody has. If you have a key, your wife has a key or whatever, or if you're single, you just have a key. But yeah, just don't leave it laying around. Be responsible about it. And um, it's, yeah. I mean, you can. So yeah, there's definitely ways that you can secure firearms, and then but still have the ability to get to them quick. So and
Yeah.
then I mean, I have a shotgun in the corner of my bedroom. I mean, or in the closet. And so, but that's the thing, is the safe that I used to have in the back of my Jeep that I from Secure It. I'm actually working. I need to mount it because it's technically made to mount under your bed. And that, I mean, that's the thing, is if you're sleeping, how fast can you get to your gun? Where is it
Mm-hmm.
at? Do you need it? Does it have a weapon light on it? So you can identify a threat. Does it have a sight? Do you have to turn the sight on? Like, all these things you should definitely be thinking about.
It
So
becomes part of your training regimen. Is
yeah,
literally like, you know, lie in your bed, preferably wearing your night clothes, whatever you normally do, and like start a friggin' timer. Nothing nothing on earth will make you jump through your butt faster and get your heart rate up faster than the sound of a buzzer on a gun timer. And like, I will be the first to admit, before I started doing that as part of my training, I used to see, the guy on Instagram or YouTube with the big old box he'd have sitting on his hip, and he'd press a button, he'd go beep, and then he would try to do something as fast as possible. And I never put a lot of stock in it at first. Kind of, I had the same opinion that I did of dry fire. Like, it's not live fire, so it's useless. Like, early on in my firearm, I guess, self education or my firearm journey, I had this opinion that there were certain things that were useful and certain things that were not. And dry fire and buzzer and all those things were in the not. And then like simunitions and live fire was in the category of things that worked well. And I now realize how foolish most of that was. But like when I started doing reviews of different things, and I started trying to bring, as an element of this podcast, I started trying to do instrumented testing. Like when I did the speed loader comparison years ago with my revolver, which is still on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. But I literally sat down and started doing instrumented testing of how fast can I do this. I did like multiple repetitions. I was looking at average times. I was trying to use data much better than look at this and look at this. I got them both on Amazon. This is how much they cost. The links are in the description. And like I started to realize very quickly that there is something psychological about that freaking beep. It does jolt you, and it does get your heart rate up, and it does make you make mistakes because you're rushing. And as soon as I realized that, I started training with timers more often, because I know I'm no longer in control of when the event or the training event starts. The beep is, the timer is. And because it jolts me, it is the same psychological response as when you are threatened by someone. You see gun, you see motion, you see hands come up. It's the exact same psychological response. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, okay, take this out of the stupid category, put it way, way deep into the useful category. But that's the thing I can tell. That's the thing you're describing is get a beep, get a timer, lay in your bed, press the friggin' button, sit there until it goes off, and then how fast can you get your gun up, loaded, sight on, and first shot? And that now becomes a new part of your training regimen. No different than how fast can I draw from concealment and get to the first shot.
Well, I mean, back when it's just training for anything. I mean, back when I was on the fire department, we used to sit there and we used to have drills on how fast can we don our gear. I mean, from the time from the time the word go, or hey, we just got an alarm. How fast can we get? Okay, say and I was on call department at the time, so we say okay, you got to drive, yeah, okay. But you get there, or you're at the hall, or whatever it is, from the time the buzzer goes to you kicking your boots off, getting your turnout gear on. How fast can you do it? And there was a set time when I was in the fire academy. There was a set time that we had to pass in order to pass that area. Like, so it's interesting, and it makes you think about your staging and staging your equipment. Okay, if I'm gonna go all Rambo and throw on a plate carrier, throw on a vet, like throw on whatever. Well, how I need to have it staged in order to grab the layers in order to do it. Now that's not realistic, but if it makes you train or makes you think about it, then okay, then do it. I don't care what it is, I guess. But that goes to just how your firearms are set up. I'm not the biggest fan of tape switches. I've had multiple fail on me before in training, but a lot of people have. This makes you really look at there's a story from a guy that I know that he was talking about. He was at home in bed sleeping, and heard some noises, whatever. Came out, found two guys basically like in his living room. I believe he had his AR, and so he flipped the light on and he pushed at the time he had a flashlight. Well, he pushed the flashlight on, identified, say, hey, get down on the ground. They got him on the ground. Well, when he'd go to take his hand off to call 911 because he lived by himself, the light would turn off. So it wasn't a click light. It was just it was a push light. It was a push button.
Momentary.
Yeah, it was momentary. So it's like, okay, well, what do I do? Because I don't have a free arm, and I live by myself. So thinking, he got them up, got them to move to where the like the emergency, like the motion detector light would come on. That came on. Now he can still identify his targets. He can still see the guys, and then he freed up his hand to call 911. But that got him to change about things about his gun. And so that's the thing, is take your firearm, take whatever you have, and run those kind of drills. Find out, hey, is the light that I just bought, it's really cool, but is it momentary, or can you click on it, click it on, and click it off? And okay, now I got and then the tapes, or the back battery housing. I mean, those get bumped around. If you're moving that around a lot and it's going in and out of cases, check and make sure that it's twisted all the way on and it has contact, because You go to do it and the light doesn't come on. You're like, well, I just changed these batteries out. Well, crap, I gotta, make one more revolution a turn.
I had that experience with my Streamlight ProTac that's on my carbine years
Yeah,
ago. I come back from a range day and like I function check my equipment every time it comes out for training, every time it goes back, right before it goes back into storage, every time it goes to gun range. Like I like to function check my stuff because if it doesn't work when I want it to, it bothers me a little bit. And when I came back, or when I went before I went to the gun range, the Streamlight was working perfectly. I do use a tape switch on that. When I came back from the gun range, I just finished cleaning the whole gun, and lo and behold, I went to just stab the momentary button on the tape switch real quick, and nothing happened. And I'm like, that's unusual. Gun's been behaving itself for a year. Nothing has gone wrong. So I'm sitting there holding it, and I reach for it to jiggle the wire. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I've got like a bad connection inside the shroud. I've got enough electrical knowledge. I would have just literally like taken the shroud from the wire apart, found the bad connection. I'd have rebuilt the whole damn harness if I need to. But as soon as it touched the wire, it jiggled it at least a little bit. It lit up, and then as soon as I let go of the wire, it stops again. And I'm troubleshooting this like an ape with a rock. Like I wiggle it this way and it dies. I wiggle it this way and it turns on. And for whatever reason, as I'm playing with this thing, my hand just wanders up to where that tape switch, that end cap screwed on into the back, and it was like a full 360-degree turn loose. And when I tightened it up all the way, tape switch worked perfectly all of a sudden.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was and here's the part. I function checked that light. I function checked that gun. I'd done that religiously ever since I put the light on the gun. I had never once checked to see if that damn end cap was loosening up under fire. Now that was hundreds of rounds of fire and going back and forth to the range in a bag and being in storage. So like it wasn't like it was a safe queen. It could have gotten rubbed and that could have started the cap loose. It could have been recoil. God only knows. But now I know part of my pre and post operation checks is just like spin my fingers on that end cap and see if that cap is backing its way off. But you're right. If you don't ever like do anything with your gear, you don't know. Oh, that's one thing I have to check like every 6 months. I mean,
Well,
obviously
and
do it all the
depends on,
time, but
right, and it also depends on just how you before we wrap this up too, but it also depends on what your intent for the gear is. Night vision, for example, the rifle I am setting up for night vision, I got an IR, a D-ball A1, I believe it is now, on there, and I have a white light, which it's gonna get turned into an IR light here eventually, but normally I run the light on the left hand side of the rifle. I'm right-handed, so my left arm is extended out on the rail. I have it set to where I can punch the tail cap if I needed to, because I'm not a big fan of switches. That being said, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm running nods, if I'm running a light without a tape switch, and then I'm running the IR, the laser without a tape switch, now I have to completely like change my grip up to basically go over top of the light and activate that IR. Okay, well, in order to get around that, I can put the light on the right side of the gun. Well, if I do that, it's out of reach of my thumb and I can't activate it. So I'm going to have to use a tape switch with that gun. However, that being said, is do your research, find a good tape switch, and you might have to spend a good $100, $200 on a good one, that utilizes that you can maybe run both of them, both the laser and the light, or if it's just one of them, and then you can run the light, the other thing with your thumb, whatever it is. Do your research and apply it, because I can tell you right now, the reason why I don't trust tape switches is I was in a low light class and my tape switch died. Like the wiring, I don't know what happened, but it quit working altogether. I checked the tail cap, I did all kinds of stuff, and I don't know, it would not function for me. So luckily I had another gun there with a light on it, and I had a tail cap. I took the tail cap off of that, put it on my rifle, and was able to complete the class. But stuff like that, it's, I mean, we train. We want to run the drills. We train because we want to be ready for the unexpected, for the inevitable. That okay, this might happen. It's not a chance of will it happen. It's just when it's going to happen. And the fact that you find trainings, you identify training scars, or you find equipment that's not working right during training, that's a sign that, hey, okay, I need to change things up. Because luckily you didn't find it when someone's banging in your door and you're finding, oh wait, my tail cap doesn't work, or my
Mm.
switch doesn't work. It's the wiring's faulty, or something's going on, and it's not working. So get your gear straight, figure it out now, stage it where you need it now, and practice with it.
So a couple of things. I think you and I have talked about the fact that you're looking at like one of the Surefire vampire lights
Hmm.
to replace the light you have right now. You probably know, but if you don't, and for anybody that's listening, look for a Surefire DS00.
Hmm.
It's an end cap that has a, you know how the normal end cap has the great big old clicky button.
Yeah, it's got the
The
small clicky
DS
button, and it's got a spot where you can plug into. Yeah.
exactly so that you get
Yep.
redundancy because I,
Yeah.
I suspect that's something that would give you some comfort there because I know you're not happy about having to use a tape switch, but you're right. If you want to run a light and a laser, you either need like, three thumbs or you need to make some compromises.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to offer was like, we've been talking mostly about firearms because like when we think of emergencies, that tends to be the thing that comes up the most often. But like this is a
Medical.
conversation, yeah, this is a conversation about how and where's your medical in your house stored. I have blowout kits in my vehicles. I have blowout kits in my wife's vehicle. I have a blowout kit in my nightstand. I have one on the back of my plate carrier. And I also have a big box of just band-aids and splint stuff and that kind of stuff, non-emergency stuff, underneath the sink where it's not quick access because no one is going to die from a paper cut in the next 30 seconds. I have time to rummage around and find the band-aids. But the stuff that's really important is very quick and easy to access. It is spread out. It's in the safe, it's in the nightstand, it's on the plate carrier, it's in the vehicles, it's in enough different places in the house that I can tell somebody to go put hands on a blowout kit, which is like chest seals and tourniquets and big owie stuff. But I can tell a moron in 2 sentences how to find one in my house in less than 45 seconds. It's distributed, spread out, and it's easy to find. I had this random thought the other day. Yeah, do you ever have intrusive thoughts where like your brain just starts saying, "What if this happens?" out of nowhere? I was sitting in the kitchen. I was cooking, and I had this thought. I'm like, I have a fire extinguisher underneath this sink right here in the kitchen, where most people would say it's a good idea to have one. But what happens if a big old badass grease fire cooks up and it's so bad so fast I can't get to this damn fire extinguisher right here in the counter under the sink right next to where the oven and the range is. So now it's got me thinking about, well, damn, I probably need to go stick another fire extinguisher on the air side of the house so that I don't have all my fire extinguishing stuff in one spot. I mean, in the kitchen, it's a good place to keep it, but it's one of those distribute it so that you have ready access to it kind of situations. And, we're talking about medical, we're talking about fire suppression. Let's have a discussion about communications. Most people have one of these god awful satanic devices, sitting in their pocket. So communications is quick and easy to get to. But how many times have you ever been in a situation, Andrew, personally, where like you've had to make an emergency call and your phone hasn't been in your pocket or it hasn't been on you? Or maybe you didn't have cell signal. I
Yeah.
mean, you could apply this whole idea of staging your preps for emergencies in a myriad of different situations. And I don't want to like continue to belabor the point and beat the dead horse. I just want to try to encourage the listenership to think about your preps as buying it was step 1. Learning how to use it was step 2. Step 3 is putting it in a state and in a location where it is secure. It's not going to develop legs and walk away from you. It's not going to get ruined because it's going to be left down the elements, UV, and, it's not going to get jacked up. But make sure it's in a place where you have access to it. Because the only thing as bad as not having the prep is having it in a place or in a way you can't actually use the damn thing. It's like if all your guns are in the safe and you're the only person who does a combination, you leave, wife can't get into the damn safe to get a gun to save herself. The guns did no freaking good. You might as well have saved all your money. So, I don't know. Like, apply that wherever you see fit. And don't take this as like criticism of, well, you're doing something wrong, but it's we fall into those traps very often of, well, of course I can always get to my gun real fast. Well, what happens if you can't? Maybe we need to start having that discussion as preppers and as survivalist minded people about how do I distribute my preps? How do I stage them? Raise your hand in the audience if you have cat tourniquets. Did you know that there is actually a quote-unquote proper way to stage that tourniquet so that it can be applied as fast as humanly possible? And by the way, in the cute little plastic wrap it came in is not that way. Most people don't, but we're giggling about it, but like we know because we deep dive this stuff, but most people don't. They buy the thing and then they assume, I'm done. I bought the thing. And then a percentage of those people will say, I bought the thing, I know how to use the thing, now I'm done. And I'm trying to get them to go that extra step and say, I bought the thing, I know how to use the thing, and the thing is ready to be used at a moment's notice. Now, obviously, when we're talking about guns and knives and bombs and friggin' mortars and that kind of stuff, we have to add an element of, like, security into it so that small hands and curious fingers don't get into it for those that have those problems running around. But quite frankly, if you have to make an argument about why I don't have a fire extinguisher within ready access or a tourniquet, like I don't know where you're going with this. I just think we need to have an honest conversation about, is our stuff prepared to be used?
Yeah. No, I'm kind of curious. I mean, listeners and stuff, I'm curious your thoughts. What have you prepped? What have you prepped, and what do you have in certain areas, and why? So I'd be kind of curious to get feedback on it. But yeah, I mean, that's all. I think that's all we got.
Yeah, and I'll walk this out with a little game you can play with yourselves and your spouses and anybody you live with that is guaranteed to be thought-provoking. Ask yourself or ask somebody else, give them a scenario. Scenario-based training always works. I didn't used to think it worked, but I've been convinced it does work. But ask someone you live with or ask yourself, A, just happened. How fast can you get to B? Someone just kicked in your front door. How fast can you get to a firearm? Somebody just sliced their leg halfway off with a chainsaw. How fast can you get to your nearest tourniquet? There's a fire in the kitchen. How fast can you get to the nearest fire extinguisher that's not in the kitchen because it's on fire right now? Start asking yourself those kinds of questions, and you will very, very quickly start to look at where your things are stored and how they're stored, and you will start to revise your thinking very quickly. And that is always the goal here. It's never to say you're screwing up. It's to say, how can we do better so that we are harder to kill, harder to hurt? We're better able to take care of our families, our communities. We're better able to take care of ourselves. But yeah, leave us a comment on Facebook, on YouTube, on Rumble. We try our best to go back and double check all that and be responsive. If you're not in the Matter of Facts group on Facebook, I encourage you. There's like 1,000 other miscreants and troublemakers in there that you can meet and probably make friends or at least have interesting people to have arguments with. And if you don't follow our social media, please do. I've been putting in effort on Instagram, mostly to hurt people's feelings and really aggravate the hell out of them. But it seems to be working, and it doesn't upset me because when I piss off somebody who's against, civilian ownership of firearms and those sorts of things, it gives me a warm feeling and deep down inside. But enjoy y'all's Sunday. Take care of each other. Think about your preps. Think about where they're stored. And we'll talk to y'all another week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.